you pick out the best ones.
Mm.
And then you go back, apply the filter, and then go back through and tweak it all. Turnaround is like literally by Monday close of business.
Really?
So,
Is that what you guys doing now?
Monday Tuesday at the latest. Tuesday close of business at the latest.
And have you set that expectation
I have, yeah.
with like the crew and client?
Yeah. There are some clients that are sort of like okay with it being a little bit late, but there are some that are just like, we need these photos by this date so we can post. But I feel like as I've been doing it for nearly over 2 years now, they sort of know that, okay, if it's not there on Monday, it'll be on Tuesday. If it's not there on Tuesday, it'll be there on Wednesday.
Yeah. And
that way I can sort of set that expectation, and like if they come through earlier, then it's just everyone's all delighted.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucking... Yeah, we got room? Yep. Expectations are fucking hardest.
It is.
And particularly with stuff that, like, is so timely like that. At least, I suppose at least with something like club photography and stuff like that, it's like you're there... You know it's every weekend.
Yeah.
So you can I suppose, yeah, you guys have like a pretty... I know things change, but like a bit of a routine, a bit of a rhythm, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, correct. And that's where it comes in, like, you know, if you're shooting the same club over and over and over again, it gets repetitive and you sort of get there, you're like... But then, like, if I am sort of rotating between different venues, then that means that content's got to be a lot more fresher. Because I feel like it's not as repetitive and not as the same thing over and over again. There will be some clubs where, you know, some venues where we'll be shooting the same thing over and over again, like with the same photographer. And they'll say, hey, Phil, look, can I shoot this instead? Like, can I shoot this club or shoot this venue? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'll just swap them over.
Yeah.
And they were all happy. So.
And you're able, I know you said it before, but you're able to like manage and get through like 8 clubs in a night, just yourself?
Yeah. No, that's it. So for me personally, I mean, going back to it from the very start, it's one of those things where I started off doing band photography.
Really?
Yeah. So band photography. So I reckon I've been doing photography closer to just over 10 years.
Wow.
Started off as a band photographer, and that was just me taking my first Canon 450D SLR to gigs and just taking photos and just getting a bit of an idea and sort of how to learn and all that sort of stuff. There's other band photographers as well that I looked at and were like, oh, that's really cool. How do they do that?
Yeah.
And then it came through. That's how I actually learned how to do off-camera flash, because we'd set up flashes. I'd set up flashes on the stage on light stands. So I'd hit the photo and they'll trigger all that. You get that really cool dynamic lighting.
Oh, nice.
And there was probably two other photographers that I knew at the time that were doing that sort of stuff. So then I started doing it. And then there was another photographer, two more photographers that I shot with around Geelong time. They started doing it as well.
Yeah.
So next thing we've got like 4 flashes up on the stage. And I'm like, oh, I got to stop doing this.
Yeah.
Because like I don't want to start getting annoying the lighting guys and all those sort of things. But I guess sort of where it comes down to like band photography, you've got such a short amount of time to take those photos and make sure that you're getting, you know, as many photos as you can. And I can relate that back to event photography because we're there for such a short amount of time, especially with the nightlife stuff. We're there for, you know, about an hour or so, but realistically we're there for 45 minutes because we need that 15 minutes to get to the next venue so we can start at that time as well. So within that sort of time, and then you're sort of like, all right, I'm on my A game, I'm going in, take the photos. And you've always just have to be so switched on socially as well when it comes to all that. You know, because you're approaching random people.
You've got like the dynamic of the band, you've got the dynamic of the venue.
Correct.
The staff.
And
then you've got whatever the hell's going on in the venue, because there's always something.
There's always something going on.
Someone's getting kicked out. The band's not happy with the venue.
That's it. Yeah. There's drinks being spilled. Yeah. There's hens parties. There's birthdays. There's all this sort of stuff. It's just a good mixture. And that's sort of what I really like about doing the nightlife stuff, is because it's always something different. And you're always going in and you're like, oh, okay, it's not just the same people sitting at the bar having a drink. It's it's like, yeah, there's netball teams having their breakups, there's footy guys, and there's just, I'll actually go up to people and be like, what's the occasion? And they're like, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday. I'm like, oh, let's get a photo. Like, jump in, let's get a photo. And yeah, usually people are good. So yeah, what I try and tell the photographers as well when they go out to take the photos is be human. Like, just go up to people and be nice. Like, just start talking to them and just ask them how the day is and like all those sort of things. And you can tell where if one photographer hasn't done that compared to a photographer who has.
Yeah.
Because the people who haven't, who are just like, hey, gonna get a photo? And they're like, why?
Yeah.
Like, introduce yourself. Be like, hey, my name is so-and-so. I take photos for this venue. Can I get your portrait? Can I get your photo? And more or less people will be like more inclined to be like, oh, yeah, no, absolutely. So,
it's interesting, isn't it?
It is very interesting.
I struggled a lot in the early days of the event photography.
Yeah.
Because, like, I was such a nervous little kid back in the day.
Yeah.
Could barely hold a conversation. I could barely look anyone in the eye. And then, yeah, like, you're forced to do it. You're forced to do it as a photographer to, like, go in the club as an 18-year-old with all those scary grown-ups and be the one that takes a photo. And it's like, you end up after a while, which I'm sure you're aware is, you get this like cool title and cool sort of persona that everyone remembers you as like, oh, he's the photographer. Like,
there was this one day, like one weekend, where I shot lammies, and the next day I was out with my partner, just going shopping or whatever in town, and somebody from that night before like recognized me, and we were like in, I think it was like Target or something. My partner and I in one aisle, and him and this other guy was in the other, and I hear, that's the photographer from last night. No. And I sort of poke my head out. I'm like, hey.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. But, going back to like being that sort of like, 18-year-old just over very green to the whole nightlife event photography thing. It's one of those things where you just go out and just do it because it's exposure therapy. And you eventually learn, okay, this is where I'm going to get my confidence from. This is how I'm going to present myself. And after a while, it does sort of like start to dip, and then you got to be like, what else can I do to make it a bit different, and how else can I approach this, and all those sort of things. So, so that's sort of like one of those expectations that I try to manage as well. Is that you get a photographer, they're going to be social, they're going to be good to work with, and if they're not, please let me know because I need feedback.
And that's to the clients. So like
that's to the clients, correct?
Yeah. So because you've got, for people that don't know, I suppose, you've got a team of people that you're using to manage all this like different events that you guys have to capture every weekend for nightclubs, bars, all the other sort of events that you might be doing that weekend.
Correct. Yeah, exactly right. So it gets to a point where you're sort of like doing all these clubs yourself, and everyone wants all the same times, as I said before, and you're sort of like, how can I do this? So where I sort of started off with the fundamental events is working for fundamental events, and you and I, Ben, have got that history where
100%
with our mutual friend Jacob, who started it, I guess, or created it, and it was just a bit of a way for it to just be a bit of a branding name, and then eventually I bought into it and became a 50-50 split between Jacob and I. And then I took on more of an operational sort of director position, and also loving how I can also be a bit of a mentor type of thing to photographers in terms of where they can improve and where they can, how they can keep going with where they are. Because I feel like in terms of mentoring and all those sort of things, I remember you giving me constructive criticism to begin with, because I think you were involved with it as well at one stage, and you basically were sort of like I remember you being like, please, I do apologize if I'm really harsh with it. Please let me know. I do apologize. It is like one of the things like, don't apologize. I don't apologize. Like, this stuff needs to be heard. Like, I need to be told this stuff of where I can improve and all those sort of things. Now I'm kind of like that with photographers now, where I'm like, I do apologize if I feel seem a bit harsh. I feel like I'm not going to sugarcoat this, but this is where I need you to be. This is what I need you to do, and all those sort of things.
I think it's so important. Like I was talking about that with someone at a networking event that Ben and I went to last night. Like, it's so easy for us to, particularly when we're the ones doing it, but I think you even have it a little bit when your team are doing it as well.
Yeah,
it can be easy to take that stuff really personally.
It does,
like it is a personal attack.
Yeah,
but like you really have to be able to separate like your work and like you personally, and be able to go like, we're both, the client and me and every other person involved is pretty much all just working towards the same goal. Yeah, just trying to make a fucking awesome video, photo, whatever. So, yeah, just tell me how it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I remember I was saying to her that I was having a conversation with, I know with my editors, I'm training someone else to give feedback on all the videos that come through us. If it's bad, say it's bad. Like, say this section here, it's not good. Yeah, like it needs to improve. Obviously, we try to be specific in some areas, but sometimes that's just all it is. Sometimes you need to like call something out. Like, hey, this here, it's not good. Yeah, and sometimes it's like, either be better or figure it out or whatever. Yeah, but like, this isn't your best stuff.
Yeah, I always find the best result is to try to work out a solution with them. Be like, okay, so this photo's quite dark. Maybe next time have your flash a little bit more angled. Also, maybe just have your ISO up a little bit more. Just try and give them solutions. And I say, the next time we do this, you'll see where the differences are. There is also some times where I'll actually go out on not a night off that I have off, but I'll actually go and visit photographers when they're at the same venue and just sort of keep an eye on them and see like how they're going and where they can improve. So it's like, let's say for instance, there's a group of people at a table, big round table, a lot bigger than this, and there's about half a dozen people sitting around it. And I go, do you know what your camera setting should be like for this? And they're like, oh yeah, maybe this. I'm like, no, try this. So like turn the flash up, increase the zoom, bring it right out, and then, oh gosh, hold the camera right up at like literally a 90-degree angle. And they'll take the photo and I'll be like, how's that? And they're like, that's good. Like, that's about. I'm like, yeah, there you go. Now, keep that in mind for next time.
Yeah. It's providing solutions, hey? Like,
it is.
I remember, and I'm terrible for this back in the day, I used to just harp on people, be like, this is the problem here. Why did you do that like that? Yeah. Do better. And it's like, looking back at that now, it's like, that is useless.
People aren't gonna take kindly to that sort of feedback.
Yeah.
Or it's like, do better. I was like, how?
Yeah.
How am I going to do better? Like, I need direction.
That's where the experience comes, though. Like, and I say this only being a young chap, but like, you very quickly learn either from your life experience or being the person that gives crap feedback, and getting it back, like people talking back to you, being like, mate, like that is just not helpful. Yeah, but you very quickly learn.
Or someone does it to you. The client does it to you, and you go, oh, tell me what you want, and then you go, oh, maybe I do that.
Maybe I do that. That's definitely how I learned.
I think life experiences really has played a big part in terms of how I present myself and manage and, sort of like keep a team sort of going. So for me, I'm in sales, I've been in sales, whether it's cars, like JB Hi-Fi or something like that. It always comes from seeing the managers that I've got at each of those jobs and seeing what their management skills are like. And you can quickly tell that the good manager will have really good feedback for people, will really know where to improve, how to like really sort of make it sure that that person really blooms and like really sort of like blossoms and all those sort of things and brings out that potential. And then the bad managers will say, shit, you're nothing.
You're not hitting your targets.
You're not hitting your targets. You're not hitting your targets. Like, why are you saying this? Why that? Why that? It's like, that's not helpful, mate. Like, give me some direction. I need to know what to do, how to improve on this. And I was very young. Those managers are quite old, and they're sort of like not bothered. Like, they can't be bothered. They can't be bothered teaching. And it's like, I need direction. So I guess sort of like life experiences, you sort of take what you can from each of the good, each of the bad, and then just apply that to you, because that way you know, okay, I know this works really well because this manager I had at this job was really, really good with it with me. I'm not going to do what that guy did because that's bad. Like, and stuff that guy as well. Like,
I'm
big bangs his shin on something. Like,
I'm sure I've learned more from the bad managers than I have from
100%.
managers.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that's another thing as well, where I'll get feedback from, you know, the photographers that we have in our team. And one of them was like, "Phil, like, you're the best boss I've ever had." Like, it's like, really? He's like, yeah, he's like, one, you always respond to like text messages, even if it's like after hours and all those sort of things. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That's totally fine. Because, but also like when you know that you want something done, you will actively try to help us get to that point and really like make sure that we can get what's expected. And I'm like, cool, I'll keep doing that.
How do you manage? Because, and we've talked about this on another episode as well.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff going around at the moment about like managers and business owners promoting like not helping their team and sort of like really going like
play stupid. Let them come up with the answer.
Yeah. Which like I like to an extent. But we have said before as well that there needs to be like a balance. So how do you manage that balance of like giving them plenty of direction, telling them what to do, but also, I suppose, not making them too reliant on you either?
Yeah, correct. Look, it probably does get to a point where I say, I've given you all the answers. Let's maybe try and use a bit of like your experience and try to see what you can come up with. There'll be some times where, you know, I don't want to take over and micromanage because I feel like micromanaging just doesn't work. It just creates too many headaches. I get to a point, I did at one point micromanage too much, and I could just sort of tell in the photographer, like the team member, that they were just off it at me.
You've got to do it to realize it doesn't work.
Exactly right. And then I sort of sit back and I'm like, I'm sorry if I was out of line.
Yeah.
I think taking accountability is one thing to make sure that, you know, they're not going to rely on you all the time. And I think another thing as well is just really sort of like, what's the word? Just really sort of like, not praising, but like really like saying, I really empower. Yeah, really empower that person and their skill, because you know that there's always so much more that they can achieve.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how I can sort of see that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I do think that's really, that balance is like the secret that like everyone's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, because to your point, someone can't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
You know, particularly when we're working with like all these different techniques and different gear,
different shooting styles as well, because each venues have their different styles as well. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like, so I feel like I love the management style to empower a team to think critically and not rely on a boss, but at the same time, there's certain things that people just can't know without being told and directed as well.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Like, I think in this space, it's so important.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. With the photography side of things as well, I'll sort of have to sort of sit there and go through each of the photos that they deliver. So just to basically just make sure that there aren't any sort of like bad things happening in the background, like people sticking up their fingers or ugly faces or something like that. If it probably gets a bit too much, where I've like maybe taken out 5 or 10 photos, I'm like, you just keep an eye on this next time.
It's one of those things, though. I know I learned this early on that, like, you get very tunnel visioned.
Yeah.
You get so tunnel visioned on, like, oh, I'm taking the photo of the group of mates.
Yeah.
And you don't see in the background, you know, a guy photo bombing or whatever the hell it is.
Slipped his nut out of his
You never know.
Man,
like,
that's it.
I and I can talk about this now because it's so late in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm out of it and I don't care.
Nope.
The amount of nipples that I had to Photoshop out of photos is ridiculous.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, people, you don't hear this side of event photography.
Is it like accidental ones, you mean? Or like...
Oh, just loose clothing, bad angle, and it's just like, okay, that's... I'm going to do you a favour here, hun, and I'm going to Photoshop that nipple out.
There's been a lot lately of how girls going out with the lacy see-through shirts.
We always used
and
to be pain.
Yeah, they don't wear anything underneath. And I'm like, cool, babe, do you. I'm just going to quietly mask that out and bring the shadows.
Yeah.
bring the shadows back in.
Yeah.
Just to save face for you and also save face for me, but also so I can submit this photo.
Yeah, because I suppose there's a difference as well between like that girl going out dressed like that just to the club and it's dark at the club and everything like that.
Yeah.
As opposed to...
A flash going off.
Yeah. Flash, which just like makes it like almost look not what they look like on the night. And then like... then they... And as well, making it way more public than...
It needs to
going
be.
out.
Yeah.
So I think that's good that you did.
Correct. And that's the thing as well, like we... because Geelong is such a small town, right? And like all these venues are, everyone knows each venue. Like if you're like, hey, let's go to the Deck, let's go to Lambie, let's go to Home House, let's, this and this and this. And we're there shooting it every weekend. The last, like, I don't want it to happen where it's like, hey, you took a photo of me and you could see like in like my see through my clothes. And I'm like, I'll be like, oh, it wasn't me, but, okay,
you don't want that reputation.
We don't want that reputation, right? Mm. So my how I want to basically uphold that sort of image for my business is just be a friend to everyone, and make sure that everyone that gets a photo looks good in it.
Yeah,
it's again, that's up to them if they want to look good or not, but try to make them look half decent. So
definitely,
but that's where I sort of say that the photos, the business, the service that we offer is representative of not just us, but also of the venue, the business that we're shooting at, like the clients and all those sort of things. So I always want to make sure that we've got a high quality images and all those sort of things, good content to use as well, because a lot of the venues will use the photos for their Instagram, socials, and all those sort of things. So, it's also just one of those sort of things where I'm just going to make sure that that's all covered as well. I feel like I'm just doing 10 people's jobs.
At the end of the day.
Sometimes at the end of the day. But, I love it. I love the responsibility. I wouldn't have bought into it if I wasn't going to be on board with it, So
talk to me about that. Like, why did you, or what was going through your mind when because you're obviously shooting for a while, right?
Yeah.
You were shooting for a while as a beginner photographer at the company, and then you worked your way up very, very fast. Like, what changed?
What changed?
Why would you buy in?
I'd been shooting, I guess, sort of the nightlife stuff. I really sort of got into it midway through 2018. That's where I met Jacob. So shot a couple gigs at Bloom, and then eventually he was like, "Hey, if you want to work for me or work with me, I've got all these other venues that need photos as well." So that's how I jumped onto that. And then was sort of really sort of still working for him throughout 2019. COVID happened, obviously. That shut the clubs down for like nearly 2 years. And then once stuff started to open up again, that's where sort of Jake was like, hey, do you want to go into partnership with this? And I was like, talk to me about it. And he's like, it's basically just a 50-50 split. But for him, he wanted to sort of step back from doing the photos as well. I think he just wanted to do more sort of the man behind the screen type of stuff. And for me, I still love taking photos. So he's like, why don't you sort of like do all that sort of the photography side of things? I'll be the man behind the screen and make sure that, we can still get all these, jobs coming through. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Okay, no worries. I'll do that. So that's sort of where it really sort of like got to me where I didn't want to stop taking photos. And the 2 years that there was no nightlife, no photography or anything like that, I didn't know who I was. I was like, it got to a point where I was like, I didn't know who I was. Like, I was just a guy going into my work, and then nothing else after that. So I feel like I've really sort of taken a bit more of that that identity and more of that persona of like, if I'm not taking photos, I'm just going to sit there and not do anything. But, you know, things have changed a little bit more now. So I've been probably doing it for about 2 years or so, just over 2 years with the partnership. I don't actually feel like we've missed any photos every weekend since. I've always had a photographer supplied each weekend to each of these clients. Clients will give me feedback, say, hey, look, maybe not this one, like not this photo, like this, maybe not this style. Can we try and change this up? And I'll relay that back to the photographers and they'll do it. So with that as well, that in mind, I still go out shooting as well. So I still have to be the boots on the ground, bit of a presence type of thing. So it's always one thing to sort of like build up the business fundamental events, but also personal branding as well, I feel like is very, very important. Because I've still got my own Instagram, and I feel like I've got more of a following on my own personal brand than I do with fundamental events. But I want to make sure that my own personal brand is linked to my business. It's like, yes, I'm Philip Patton, but I'm Philip Patton Photo, but I actually shoot for fundamental events. This is where everything's going to go through. And I sort of want to branch out where it's like, yeah, you know, you can have me, but I'm going to cost a little bit more. Or you can have a photographer from fundamental events, get the same quality, but, you know, not have to pay for that amount. Which one do you want to do? And, you know, that's sort of how I think personal branding is really important, because you can be your own entity, or you can be like an entity on your own, like on its own, and have photographers come from that as well. So that's where I'm sort of like, where I've sort of started at, want to work towards those sort of things.
I think it's so important to be focusing on your personal brand, particularly with this kind of work. Like, I think anyone that wants to do the full videography suite or just editing, photography, like anything where your like work is on display for people, like giving people a chance, like see that and then see you and like build a connection with your personality. Like, it's just going to make it so much easier to build your business and get clients that way.
Absolutely.
I honestly don't think I've met like someone. I'm sure I have. This is probably, let's edit this out. No, it's fine. Leave it.
Lies.
But I don't think I've met many people that are like really far along in business that have said, I really regret starting my personal brand earlier.
Yeah.
Like, I really regret. Pretty much all of those ones have said, I wish I started earlier. Like, I should have focused on the personal brand as well as the scene, because whether or not they want to increase their value, like, and have that as something that is like separate to the business, or I suppose create that delineation in the business, or whether or not they fucking sell the business later on and go do something else. Like, they're not starting from zero.
Yeah, exactly.
They're still Philip Patton.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's awesome that you're focusing on that, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just, you know, sort of personal life-wise, that's how it sort of has to move forward a little bit. Got a baby due in like 5 weeks. So
how exciting.
They're very exciting. So that way, again, just managing expectations with the clients. Be like, hey, guys, just letting you know, I've got this booked in for a baby to come. Like, I'll be taking more of an admin role, but, you know, I was trying to supply a photographer each weekend. It just won't be me shooting. And most of them are like, yep, no worries, thanks for the heads up. Really appreciate it. Oh, all of them are. They're actually really excited for me. And that way they're like, just let us know if you can't, and that's fine.
How thankful does it make you feel that you've got a team, like, coming into that period? Like,
mate, I reckon I've aged slower. Because, look, working during the day at like my normal job, and then working at night, then you've only had like 2-hour break between your job and then like doing nightlife photography. It was getting so much, like, even before, like, you know, I had a partner and all those sort of things. It was every weekend, and I'm like, do I get a rest soon? Like, where's my next break? So I reckon having the team has saved me so much time, just basically both, you know, in my own personal life, mentally as well is probably the really important one. Just making sure that you've got your time for yourself as well. And as well as, just making sure that nobody else is sort of like, no one's missing out on the weekend because, they've always got a photographer there. And, something fun's happening, cool, photographer will be there. And I feel like I really have a really good relationship with the clients and all those sort of things. So they're more than happy to ask me, hey, can you come this time? Can we get a photographer in for this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then they'll throw me a curveball and they're like, can you do menu photography? I was like, sure. Let's do it. Yeah. So let's book in a date and we'll get some people in and take some photos of some food. Get to eat the food later on. It's all sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting the curveballs you get being in the industry.
Yeah.
There's always the random thing like a venue owner will launch a beer brand or it'll launch something and it's just like, do you take on the opportunity or do you stay in the lane that you are so systematized for? Because I know we did this early on. We were trying to be everything to everyone.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, yeah, you want a website? Sure. You want SEO? Like, I know a guy. Like, I'll get him to do it under us. Google Ads, this, whatever. And it's just like, very quickly, we were like, what the are we doing? We have all these avenues and they're starting to turn into fires everywhere. And it's like, what are we doing? We just want to do that.
That's it. And I think staying in your lane where you need to stay in your lane is very important. Like, you have to be so self-aware about that. But also the power of saying no to people. They will respect you so much more if you say, I can't do that. Like, I could probably have a try at it. You'll probably get, very disappointed, and I don't want to put that disappointment. So I'm going to say no to that inquiry, no to that job, and they'll thank you for it. They'll be really appreciative of it. And if you sort of put it in a way where you're like, again, I don't want to disappoint you. I'm not in the business to disappoint people. I'm in the business to satisfy people and make sure that they're happy with the work. I'd rather not do that. And then obviously offer a different solution as well. Being like, maybe reach out to this person. I think I've flicked a couple your way. Maybe.
Likewise.
Yeah. Likewise as well. Which is, networking and all those sort of things is very important as well. And the relationships and
do you know
that sort of stuff.
What's so interesting? And it's such a stigma for the creative industry. And I'm not saying like I've never done this because I used to do this. I used to protect all my leads that came my way.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't even care. Like, if I can't help you, no one's going to help you. Sort of thing. Like, you'll be okay. And you had this barrier between all these other creatives.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, you're my competitor. You're going to steal all my work. My pricing is my pride and joy type thing.
Yeah.
And you had all these secrets. And then, you slowly learn. And again, more experience. You're like, Geelong, small place, 22,000 businesses.
Yeah.
I want 20. Yeah. I want 20
20,000.
And 23,000. No,
That's a big fire.
Lots of fires everywhere. I want 20 clients consistently. That's it. And you don't even want the same clients. You want probably the kids of my clients.
Yeah.
Because they're having their milestone birthdays and all that sort of stuff.
Correct. Yeah.
And you really quickly learn, like, all these people that are out there trying to, like, put up walls and we're competitors.
Yeah.
Like, you learn so much more.
Yeah.
Just being together.
Yeah.
Oh, it was one of the biggest reasons why we want to start, this podcast and showcase other creatives. Because, like, I don't think we've had anyone on the podcast yet that we would actually say that we would do exactly the same work and we would say as a direct competitor. Like, and even a lot of the people we've got booked in, like, now, if you put it on paper, I think you could argue, and there'll be other people that aren't in the industry that would look at it and go like, but you guys all do the same thing.
Yeah.
But when you get down to the crux of it, it's like, it's so easy to go like, no, this is my lane.
Yeah.
Like, anything out of this lane. And I feel like it works better too for your business, because then you can, if you do stay in your lane and you hand off all the other stuff, it flows back in so much better, and then just get the stuff that you're really good at.
Yeah.
And you can, and everyone wins. Yeah. The client gets a way better result because you're just focusing on the stuff you're really good at, constantly getting better, which is
correct.
I think a massive thing with, we talked about experience earlier. Like, it's so important with our type of work.
Yeah.
And it's changing so much too.
It is, yeah. And it's what you mentioned before, that everyone's got like the one goal to work towards. And let's all try and get to that goal. Whether we're not going to get there faster, like as fast as the other, we'll all eventually get there as well. So yeah, definitely with like, the client wins, you win, everyone wins, like, and all those sort of things. So yeah, I don't really feel like there's any good gatekeeping, that sort of stuff. There's so much power and knowledge and all those sort of things in terms of, not just how to take a photo, but also how to present yourself and how to just sort of like, it all circles back, I guess, in the end. Yeah.
So what's another thing that I'm interested in? How do you like to manage, because I assume this is probably the first time you've been in a partnership sort of thing. How do you like to manage, expectations between the people part of the business, that everyone's doing their part?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it all comes down to consistency. Even like smaller things where, with your Lightroom presets and all the settings, they can just change from photographer to photographer because they'll just save that preset. It's like, hey, that's good. So like I have to sort of, export all my presets every 6 months and be like, hey, can you update with these presets, make sure it's all consistent and all those sort of things. I guess in sort of terms of expectations, like I don't really sort of keep the photographers apart. Like I'm more than happy for them to like contact each other and talk to each other and all those sort of things, because I don't really sort of want to be like, nah, I want to keep it all separate and all those sort of things. As I just don't think that's fair. And like, I don't want them to think like Phil's doing something dodgy.
Well, you're building a team at the end of the day.
Building a team at the end of the day, correct. And, I'd love to get to a point where we all have a Christmas party and all those sort of things. But I thought I'd like, that was like the first thing I thought. I was like, yeah, we're going to have a Christmas party, like the whole team. And then a year went past and I was like, you'll do it next year. And it's like, oh, probably not this time.
Well, you realise too, like, you go to do the Christmas party and it's like, can't do it on Saturday because that's when everyone needs to be booked.
Exactly. It's like, where am I going to find a photographer?
But
it's good fun.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought. I was going to ask you another question, but it slipped my brain. What about gear? Like, how do you like to manage? No, that was the question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
It's come back to me. Disjointed thoughts.
Amazing.
How do you like to manage your team members getting similar sort of work to what you're asking them to do?
Yeah.
So the whole like non-compete sort of stuff.
Like in terms of the gear or?
No, in terms of like actual like jobs. So like you're in the event space. So let's say, you're largely doing milestone birthdays, maybe some weddings, corporate events.
Yep.
So how do you like to manage that? Let's say you have, Lammies, whoever it is, and one of your photographers, starts getting approached by Lammies to be like, oh, we just want to go to you directly as a photographer.
Yeah.
How do you like to manage that with your photographers to be like, hey, unwritten rule, or maybe even written rule?
Written rule, unwritten. Yeah, look, mainly everything's all unwritten.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, so where I sort of say that I'm more than happy for photographers to talk to each other and, be mates and talk amongst each other and all those sort of things, I always tell the photographers, if the venue wants to have a chat to you, you can get them to chat to me first. But I feel like I've established a good system where I'm the point of call, because I've always got my phone switched on and people can just contact me at any time. So yeah, look, I don't think that would ever happen. I can't say never, but like if it could happen, it's one of those things like, hey man, like, let's have a chat. Let's try and work something out. If it's something like this, just like, do you need to be paid more? Like, what do you need? What do you want? Like, because I'm more than happy to sit down and chat about something. Because again, going back to not gatekeeping, but also protecting your own business.
I suppose, like you said, it's understanding the goals of your team. Like, have you got some young guy or girl on the team that is hungry for work and hungry for business, and it's a little entrepreneur up on the way, and that's where you probably need to have that conversation with them. Be like, hey, I was in your spot, and I get what you're doing, and like this is the pathway for you if you want it.
Yeah. And look, this is the thing as well. I'm not seeing myself doing this forever. I'd love to build up a big, massive team and, you know,
create a succession plan.
Succession plan and all those sort of things. But I guess, like, it's one of those things where I'm just sort of trying to take it, you know, week by week. I try not to get ahead of myself too much, because then I'll sort of I'll be like 2 or 3 weeks ahead in my mind, like mentally. Whereas, like, oh no, wait, I need to focus this thing on now. But yeah, look, in terms of if somebody wanted to be like, hey, look, this venue has asked for me to take the photos, I'll be like, okay. All right,
I suppose. But I suppose that there's a lot of people that would be worried, like, yeah, they might lose the client because then the client tries to go with that cheaper option. So like you don't have any concern about that at all.
Not really.
That's awesome.
No, because I set myself at a value, and I know our value, and I know the sort of the content and the quality that we provide for the amount that we give. I always say this is just a cheeky salesperson thing, but I always say to people, would you rather spend too much for something, you know, spend more money on something for it to do everything that you want plus more, or would you rather spend on something on what you should and not only do your basic minimums? Yep. So, like, I feel like I'm not overly priced when it comes to, you know, with the packages and all those sort of things. But if somebody says, oh, look, that's a fair bit, I was like, just compare it to other people and see what they've got. You know, like, compare their pricings to their quality. Again, I'm not bad-mouthing or anything like that. Like, again, this is where it's just like everyone's got room for improvement. But then I sort of say, like, you know, I'd rather you spend more money on something so you're happy rather than spending money on something where you're not going to be happy and then you just waste that money.
Yeah, and they are paying, like, in general, I think, particularly with all of our sort of work, people are paying for a level of certainty as well, right? Like,
correct.
If they go and they just try to, like, spike in on that, like, one photographer or whatever, that photographer probably loses out on all the other jobs that you were going to give them. Yeah. Because it's like, well, I can't trust you. Like, so that is what it is. You take that client, that is what it is.
Yeah.
But then the client's also got this one thing now. That person's sick on a weekend, they really, really need them, or takes a break or whatever, or gets out of the industry. It's like, then they've got nothing to go to. Right?
Yeah.
That's why I've never liked, and I know you and I talk about this all the time, I've never liked the concept of businesses putting all their eggs in one basket in regards to, like, oh, meet Tony. Like, Tony is our social media guy for our entire business.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He does our web. He does our socials. Yeah. He knows his way around a camera. You know, he's the best.
Yeah.
You know, very quickly, Tony realizes how good he is, and Tony leaves and starts his own business. And this person's screwed.
Yeah.
And I see this so often with the same thing in the event industry. People have this one photographer, and, you know, that person goes and they just don't have anyone to turn to.
Yeah.
So, like, you've always got to have so many, you know, options to go with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I like when businesses have a marketing manager.
Yeah.
But not
the all-in-one.
Yeah, like, the marketing manager more so coordinates everyone else.
I love a marketing manager.
Yeah.
I do, because they understand the tonality of a business and all the nitty-gritty that, I'm sorry, I can't be asked. Not that I don't care, but sometimes, like...
Oh, how long would it take you to catch up to, like...
10 years of business.
Day to day. Yeah.
That's it. And it's just like, give me the high level of what I need to know so I can complete the project for you, then I'm only probably going to work with you once every 8 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, to your point, I love a marketing manager.
I like the business that you've built, though. Like, I obviously don't know more than, like, what I had before, but like, I think that's everything that, like, I think where businesses now, creative businesses, need to go. Yeah. Because I think there's been a big push towards how much money people can make freelancing, doing it on their own, and, like, all the power to people doing that, and everyone's going to start somewhere. But, like, just so many variables that come with, like, for the client and for you as a freelancer as well, doing it on your own.
Yeah.
It's just so tough. So, like, I think it's awesome you got, like, a team, and that way as well they can probably have a better life outside of the work as well.
And that's the thing as well. You it's creating jobs, and it's also, basically making sure people have work. Because I'm always saying, do you want to make some extra money? Like, I used to do this thing. I can't do it all, but I've created this thing, and you can work for me. You can do the same job, get paid really well for it, by the way. It's super easy. And, do you want to be on board? And they're usually like, yeah, okay. Like, cool. You just need your own gear. You just need your own car. You need your own car travel. You need your ABN. And they're like, yeah, got that. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's go out and let's go shooting. Yeah. So yeah, I think get to it. I think when eventually where I couldn't do 8 venues a night, it just sort of burnt me out so much. And then I was like, I have no time for myself. So I feel like where I created a business / company, an entrepreneurial type of sort of, I guess, like not persona, but like identity or anything like that. I really like the fact that, I can help people make money as well as obviously myself. Whether I'm making, I don't think I actually make more money than what the photographers do, to be honest. Yeah.
But I mean, that's
again, it's just one of the things where I just want to make sure that people are getting the services, they're getting the photos, people are got jobs and all those sort of things, and I'm sort of like, it's cool.
But any good business, especially in the business that you're in, like that's the way to run it. Like they're the ones doing majority of the work.
Yeah.
So it's like they're the ones that should probably get most of the pie. Yes, you own all the relationships and X, Y, Z, but I reckon you have a great structure that, it'll get to a point where you've got enough volume where there'll be just enough time for you to manage. And I know you love systems.
Yeah.
Your systems will be great. Your ability to manage all of this work will be very easy.
Yeah.
And that portion, that profit margin will be great for you to just sit and manage and do all the things that you love to be able to do, which is help people, provide income.
Yeah.
Very easily.
Well, I feel like the most important thing in business is to stay in business.
Yeah.
So if you create, so many people, I think, get so greedy in business, and they create, they either charge way too much for a service because they think, if I can get away with it, why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
But you get paid okay. You get paid well for a small amount of time.
Yeah.
Or you make a crazy profit margin. Because you might be able to, but it won't last.
Yeah.
It will come crashing down. And I'm all for, if you can charge and make an insane amount of profit, and that's sustainable, go for it. You should be paid what value you bring. But I think it's, like you said earlier, with that self-awareness thing, it is so important to go this is the way to do it, and not, well, I suppose not worry that they're going to go out and do it on their own, because they'd have to go, well, is it worth that extra amount for all the headaches and everything to be on me, or do I want to just fucking do what I love doing?
And correct. And it's one of those things where I'm not making crazy margins, the last thing that you'd want, sort of the person that you're working for is just driving around this expensive Mercedes and it's dressing up in all these designer clothes and all those sort of things while you're sitting there being what's happening? Why are they doing? Why have they got that? And it's I'm modest. I'm very modest with it. Very it's just I get what you mean, because it's sort of they're why is my boss got a bloody really expensive car and all these sort of things, what am I doing? So again, I feel like I'm just really sort of putting myself into being on the sort of same level as everyone else. At the end of the day, I'm still a photographer. So again, do the video stuff, diving into it and all those sort of things. And it's you're the one that's invoicing me, but I'm also invoicing my own company as well, because I'm also still working for my business too. So so I guess sort of just trying to really sort of stay humble and be on the same level as everyone, and that's sort of where you can just make sure that everyone's all happy.
Yeah, and it keeps you up with the times too.
It does.
It keeps you up with all the moving dynamics that happen, and especially in in this little town, rural town Geelong.
Yeah,
all the different things that can change in the clubs and different dynamics.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you got to stay connected.
You do, 100%. And we're always out there trying to find more photographers. Say, hey, do you like taking photos? Or there's been a couple of people like, hey, can I have a shot?
I've sent a few recently your way.
Have you? Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, there's been a bunch. I've had like, it's interesting. Like the more and more of the persona we build, we get a lot of people contacting us, and it's just like, unfortunately, I don't have none of the right skill sets to come work for us. But like, I know a bunch of people that would love, like, where you're at in your journey at the moment. Like, go and speak to these guys.
Yeah, and at the moment, all I'm asking for people is if you know how to use a camera and a flash and are good talking to people, so it's all you need.
You can train the rest.
I can train the rest.
Yeah,
exactly. I can teach you the settings. I can teach you how to edit. Like, I'll give you constructive criticisms. I'll sit down and voice and film myself and screen record all of your photos, and I'll edit them and critique them and stuff like that.
That's all.
Only just to make sure that it's all within the standard, and that way you can the better you are at making sure that you're delivering the stuff that I want, the more jobs I'll give you.
That's awesome. I think so many more people could learn from that when they're starting out. Like, I think most people, like, they think they want to do more of the thing they love doing. So they think they've got to start a business and grind it out alone and all that sort of thing. And we've said in previous episodes, like, the best way to start would be to go find someone that, like, can mentor you and train you up.
Yeah.
And, like, if you still want to run a business after that, like, you're just so much more set up to do that. And, like, the likelihood as well is that, like, they may not necessarily want to start a business that's an exact competitor and all that sort of thing. So, like, if you find the right opportunity, like, imagine I'm sure you've probably had it before where people have been with you for a little while and they go start looking at these other things and everything like that.
Yeah.
Probably a great supporter of that. 'Cause it's like, well, it's not a competing thing.
I'm not going to stop them. Yeah. Even if they do want to jump into the event space, and I'm like, yeah, cool, awesome. Sweet.
You can't do it all, right? Like,
no, exactly, correct. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, if I was like, oh, can you help me shoot this event, like to shoot this event, like it's a corporate. They're like, oh, no, I've got a wedding that weekend. I'm not going to be like, what do you mean you got a wedding that weekend? How dare you? And it's like, yeah, sweet. No, that's awesome. Show me photos when you're done. Like, I want to see them. Like, yeah, just being very supportive about that sort of stuff and taking a genuine interest in like, your team members, but also just team members, just anyone that you meet. Show genuine interest in someone.
You never know when it's going to come back around.
Exactly.
Like,
correct.
I think if I look back, there's a fair few clients I've worked with that, like, came randomly out of, like, different connections, and I'm like, fuck, that's so interesting. That, like, there's a client we've been working with now that I met through a guy I did a coaching program with, like, 2 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
And we did, like, a few chats and stuff like that, and we get along really well, but it was very random.
Yeah.
It was purely just out of, like, having a chat outside of the thing.
Yeah.
With no agenda.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't want anything from him. He didn't want anything from me. We were just, like, jamming on ideas. So I think that's, like, we all really are in, like, the relationship game. Like, you just never know when stuff could come back around.
Absolutely.
Jacob used to be good at that. When I was working for him, he used to have stories all the time. He's like, oh, I just got for playing in Cairns, The guy I was sitting next to is absolute ripper fella. We're going to have a chat next week, and you get on the phone call with him. And it's like, runs this huge management team of, like, influencers in Australia. Yeah. All the main DJs that headline across Australia. And all these, like, medium up-and-coming micro-influencers. And you're like, how did you meet this guy? Oh, he's just playing next to me. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Jake was like, oh, I was just editing a flyer, and he saw it, asked the question, bang, got on.
Yeah.
And it's just, you never know.
You never know.
You never know who.
No.
You never know who's who. In the
Correct. So. Exactly. And that's the thing. You just don't want to just be a smart ass to anyone.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, you don't know who you're talking to. Like, the next person, like, you say, like, you give like a rude, sort of like interaction with. They're like, that person's that boss. And it's like, that person is your client.
Yeah.
And you're like, shit. But I don't think I'm like that anyway.
Yeah.
Hope not.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Might have my bad days, but, it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, if you had to give any advice to an up-and-coming videographer or photographer, what would you say to them?
Honestly, I always say just slow yourself down. Really sort of take a breath when it comes to things. Like, I know it's such an overwhelming industry to try and break into. Let it start off as a hobby first before you start advertising yourself to be, hey, I want to make money from it. Really hone in on your craft, I'd say. And then eventually, if you sort of want to work into creating a business and creating, a bit more of a company where you want to start to have people working within your business as well, really sort of like take a look at yourself and be like, cool, I'm a good photographer, I'm a good person, I can be a good boss, but how can I be great? Ask those questions. How can you really sort of improve on where you are? And that way it just sort of takes you on that bit of that journey. And eventually you might get to it, you might not. At least you gave it a go. But yeah, look, I'd say just slow down. Don't go too fast. Like, next day's the sun's got to rise another day. Time is valuable. So I guess you just make the most of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think, like I say, it can be really overwhelming when you first start. It can feel easy to get into initially. Like, I think there's a lot of people that have sort of unrealistic expectations when they do get into the industry.
Yeah.
But I think, slowing down is an important one.
Yeah.
It can feel really overwhelming when you look at, like, your backlog of work.
Yeah.
And go, you always think you've got to, like, I know we've definitely done it. I'm sure you probably, I feel like everyone has at some point.
Yeah.
Where you've just worked and you're barely sleeping because you're just, like, editing late into the night, sometimes all night, just to, like, get stuff done.
Yeah.
Just meet a deadline. And you just sacrifice so much because you think you have to at a certain period. And there are phases for that. I'm big on, like, there's phases where you need to grind and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, I think that's great advice, man. I appreciate you saying that.
Oh, no worries at all.
Well, how can people find you? What's your brand?
My
What's
brand,
your business?
So Fundamental Events AU so that's one word, at Fundamental Events AU. My own personal brand's Philip Patton Photo. You find us on the weekends at clubs. Basically, we'll be wearing the t-shirt with our logo most of the time anyway. If you see us, say hello. And if you're ever interested in joining, we've got a little application on our website. I'd take a look through all the applications, and yes, whatever experience you've got, happy to have a chat and see how we can improve on it.
Cool, man.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Excellent.